Hello everyone, welcome to this video. In this video, we'll be discussing about the types of APIs that is available for us to build the AI-based solutions. The very first API that we are going to discuss, it's a completion API. So nothing but a basic API. So it is going to take a single input and respond back to that. For instance, let's say you wanted to write an essay on a specific topic. It's going to take your question and respond back to that. It's not going to remember any of your previous conversations. It's just a single turn interaction. Have a state. Now let's move forward. That we have, it's the chat or a conversational API. It does support multi-turn dialogues. For instance, you will be asking, hey, what is the capital of France? Then it is going to respond back to you saying that it is Paris. Then the follow-up question, it's going to be how far this is from London. To answer to this particular question, it should know what did you ask in the past, right? So in that sense, it should know all of your previous conversations. So that is API. It's ideal for back and forth conversations, right? And then all these recent LLMs does support. That we have, it's the response API. This is pretty similar to the chat API. The difference is that it does support the server-side state management. With chat API, you have to pause your previous conversation. But with this particular API, you really don't have to pause all your previous conversation. Rather, you will be just pausing your previous response ID. That is going to greatly reduce the overall body of your request. Under a development, and it's subject to change. Move forward. That we have, it's the Azure AI Foundry Inference. This is not an API, but this is a unified platform that allow you to build your AI solutions. For instance, it has a model catalog, RAG, supports deployment options. This is the Microsoft answer to build your enterprise applications. Now let's move forward. We have, it's the Azure AI Foundry Agent Service. This is built on top of the chat API, right? So it has the thread, runs and messages so that you can effectively handle your state. And it also supports the tools integration, right? So ideally, when you want to build your enterprise application, this is what you will be using along with your AI Foundry inference. Now let's compare which one we will be using. First, we have the completion. So basically completion, it's a single turn, right? So if you really wanted to have a conversational application, you really cannot use the completion. So in that sense, you have to go with the chat API. Then let's assume that you want to perform a specific action that is not supported by the chat API, and that is where you will be using the agent. Right, then you wanted to have a multi-model support, which means that, for instance, you will be using GPT and then a llama, right? So or DeepSeek, right? So different models that is not supported by the chart, but then to do that you have to use the inference or Foundry, right? So again, you will be using the combination of Foundry features plus agent API to make price grade applications. Then do the Visual Studio Code and show you how each one works. Very first API that we are going to discuss, it's the completion API. It is not directly supported in the latest LLMs. Rather, if you really wanted to perform a completion, you have to still use the chart API even to do a completion, right? So chart API anyway does support a multi-turn. So you will be asking a single query and then terminating that particular run. But if you really wanted to understand the completion, you have to use the older model. So in this case, I will be using the GPT 3.5, right? Go ahead and run the program. So now I can ask the question. So it is going to respond back and it is going to terminate that. So now let's move forward to the chart API. So in the chart API, unlike the completion API, it does support multi-turn, right? So in this sense, all the latest models does support the chart API. So if you see here, I'm using the GPT-4o, right? So now let me run this. We'll say like what is the capital of India? uh, China. How these two. So it does remember like my first question and then second question before it can answer to my third question, right? So that is what we say like short API. It will remember all your previous conversation. Basically, like it's not going to remember your previous conversation, but then like every time when you ask a question, you will be saying like this is my previous question and this is your answer. This is my previous question. This is my previous answer. You will be sharing all your history, right? So that is what it does. This is pretty similar to the chat API, but the difference here is that instead of passing all your previous messages, you will be simply passing your response ID. So the payload, it's not going to be as much as the chat API payload. It's going to be very minimal here because like you are not going to send you all your previous conversations. Rather like you will be just passing the response ID. So basically like it means that the server maintains your previous conversation. For each conversation it is going to generate ID, and you can leverage this particular ID so that instead of you passing all your information, server will receive this response ID based on which it will populate all the necessary information before it can pass it to the LLM. Now let me run it. Again I will ask the same question, what is the capital? So it is going to respond back. So basically like this is nothing but your chat API, but then like slightly improved, right? So if you see here, so here it says response output, but in the chat API you have to do like a response dot choices of whatever is that. So again, still under the development, it's not yet ready for a production consumption. So now let me talk about the inference. So inference by itself, it's not a API, rather it's a unified platform using which you can build your APIs. So again, like I'm just using the chat API, but then like I'm using the inference to my OpenAPI client. Now let me run. Again, I will ask the same question here. Now let's move forward to the agent API. Agent API, it's what we discussed in depth in our previous videos. But again, like let me go and explain this. So basically like we create a project client and we create a agent, and then like we create a thread, and we create a message, and we run that thread, get the response, and then like print the response. So extract that last message and then print it, right? So that it will go back and forth. So here if you see here, right, you are not really going to append your previous conversations, right? So all you are going to do is that, hey, like this is my thread, this is the message that I wanted to process, then it does take off all your previous conversations, right? So that is the beauty of this agent API. Now let me run this. See here, it does support the conversation, right? Again, the only difference is that compared to the chart API, in chart API it's the raw format, but then like as the agent API built on top of that, it provides way for you to manage all the state, right? I wanted to discuss about the semantic kernel. Semantic kernel, it's not a API. Basically, it's an orchestration framework. Semantic kernel, Autogen, these are all the orchestration frameworks that you will be using it when you build the multi-agent system, right? So in our previous video, we discussed about the team lead, coder, reviewer. So in this, at the time, like I mentioned that we will be using Autogen and the semantic kernel to build these kind of applications. So quickly we will discuss on this particular topic. So to do so, you have to install the semantic kernel library, and then like you will be adding your LLM here, and then like you will be having your plugin. So basically like you will be having the planner, which I'm not going to discuss in this particular video. Maybe in the upcoming video I will discuss about all this in detail. So but in this case I will be just having the plugin here. So here where like I have defined all these plugins. So here like you can define a number of plugins, how many ever plugins that you wanted to have, you can define it here. And then like you can let your semantic kernel to call these plugins. So in this case I have manually invoked the plugin to demonstrate, but then like this will be done by the planner by itself. You really don't have to do it. But for the demo purposes, what I'm saying is that I'm just making an instance of this particular greeting function. I'm asking the kernel to invoke by passing these values. So now let me run this. Now it is printed a greeting message here, right? So that will use the semantic kernel. Again, this is a very basic semantic kernel implementation. But to just to understand that this is not a API, this is a orchestration framework. To summarize, let me go back to the web page. Here we discuss about the various types of API that is available to us to build the AI-based solutions. The very first one we discussed the completion API. So basically, like, it's kind of a one-time, right? So you just ask a query and get the response. And the like a chat API, it's where like you will be doing the conversation. By itself, it doesn't support the state management. Basically, like, you have to pass all your messages back to the query. And then like have this foundry agent API that is allow us to build the enterprise grade applications. For this video, thank you for watching.